Stephanie, thanks so much for joining us. Really happy to have you on here. So we have Stephanie Middaugh here from Divvy. She's a senior sales enablement manager. So we're going to walk through a little bit about herself, her career journey, and what she's doing at Divvy today. So Stephanie, thanks so much for joining.
Hey, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So first question, before we jump into kind of the thick of things, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah. So currently I am living in Lehi, Utah, which me and my husband just relocated to from Southern California. Both of us grew up in the OC for majority of our lives. So that was pretty fun. So I actually trained to be a teacher. So I wanted to be a high school English teacher, basically all growing up. And then about a year before I was going to do student teaching, I decided that I didn't actually want to deal with the politics of schools. So that's when I dropped the education part of my major and just kept on going with the English part. And I really had no idea where I was going to go. I didn't know what I was going to do. And then I, came across this receptionist job, and I just kind of for the first half of my career so far, I let the tides of, change just kind of take me where they would. And it's only been recently that I actually started taking an active role in what I really wanted to do and where I wanted to go with my career and my life. I'm really excited to kind of do whatever I can in the enablement community.
That's awesome to hear it. And we'll unpack that history. I think you condensed it down to just a few lines there, but you had so much career experience during that time. So when I was doing my research, you spent a lot of your time at Sage early on in your career. A lot of people actually here in the US don't know Sage, but Sage is literally the second biggest tech company in the UK, third biggest ERP provider in the world. And you spent a good 6 years there, almost starting from the bottom and rising up the ranks there. So you were in deals desk, you moved to sales ops, and we see a lot of that in sales enablement professionals is starting in sales ops, starting in deals desk, and then making the move to sales enablement. So what are the few of the things you learned starting in those roles that you've now been able to bring into your skill set now when you were at Sage?
Yeah. Sage was basically the very first company, my real big girl job, I will say. So that's really where I learned, seriously, everything about the business world. And looking back on it, I really am thankful for that opportunity that I was given. I started as a receptionist. I was really only in that role for, I think, maybe 3 months. And then my manager at the time was like, you can do so much more. Let's move you over to essentially what is deal desk. And I spent a good amount of time kind of in that role for both sales and then renewals. And, it's one of those things where it just taught me so much about the business world. One of the things that I know I've leveraged throughout all of my opportunities since then is the idea of a channel partner ecosystem. So Sage has been around for decades, and they have a really solid channel sales program. And that's essentially what I did was I took orders from our channel partners and would work with our sales reps who worked with our channel partners. So seeing that ecosystem and how it was built out, moving to the later startups who were then trying to build a partner ecosystem from scratch, really helps me kind of wrap my head around it, especially when I moved into training and explaining to new folks who maybe had no experience in a partner ecosystem, what it is, what it means, what do partner margins mean and partner contracts and that kind of stuff. So that little piece alone, was hugely helpful in my career kind of moving forward. And then I'd say from a personal standpoint, the two leaders that I was under there at Sage they really set the bar really high as far as teamwork goes. So the idea of, it's really important to take time and build a really good team atmosphere where no matter what is kind of thrown at you from the business, you can tackle it as a team so long as you've got that really strong bond. And I've made friends for life from my experience at Sage. And it was one of those things where just looking up to those two leaders alone, I've seen it done really, really well. And I've seen it maybe done not so well as far as like team work and, team dynamics and stuff. And that really did set the bar really high for me right at the beginning of my career, which I'm really thankful for.
That's awesome. Sounds like you got some great tactical experience from the channel side, which is actually really big for enablement, because so many of the companies today also need to enable internal people and also enable the channel.
Yeah.
But from a cultural standpoint, the teamwork of motivating a sales team is super important. So that's awesome to hear. So it sounds like you went from Sage after that 6 years there. You then kind of transitioned from the big company tech world into a few more fast-growing companies like Alteryx, which recently went public in the last couple of years, DataStax that raised 190 million in funding. And then you took a few sales enablement roles there as well. Maybe walk us through that transition from going from large company into more high growth company. Did you learn anything new from that kind of transition?
Totally. So one of the things is like it was kind of a culture shock moving from a well-established company that had been around for decades to a company that, Alteryx was, they'd been around for a while, but they really picked up like their speed like shortly before I joined. So the like dynamic is just completely different. Sage had like really, ingrained processes and they knew what they were doing. And like, they like had it all figured out. And Alteryx was like, we're still figuring it out. Like, come in and help us figure it out. So that's one of the things about, especially I moved from operations to enablement when I moved to Alteryx, and enabling sales reps at a new startup or a relatively new startup company is completely different because everything is changing just so frequently and so rapidly that like the communication and the training, like you really have to be so nimble and be able to like kind of think outside of the box. And I was really lucky with the leaders that I was like under like their Alteryx too, who they were truly phenomenal, like females in like the tech industry who, were able to kind of, drill that down into like us as employees of like, we've got to be quick on our feet and we've got to think outside the box. Like, how do we go forth? And like, while thinking about scale, we also have to be able to like react, appropriately to the changing business and be able to support it. So it was night and day. It was like a little bit kind of a jog, and then all of a sudden it was like high sprint.
It's probably because of you starting there. We saw all that high growth. Would you say that was a culture shock for you? Did it take a while for you to get used to? Were there times where you had low points saying there's too much change here? Or did you just have that mindset from the start?
Yeah, there were, I think it was maybe like a month into Alteryx, and I came home and my now husband, I was like, I can't do this. Like, it's moving too fast. I can't keep up. I'm going to get left behind. Like, there's no way I can do this. And I have an incredibly supportive, like, home. Like, my husband's amazing. And he was like, you can do this. Just take a deep breath. And like, how do you climb a mountain? It's one step at a time. So that's really when, I've always been an organized person, but that's really when it like took hold, was when you've got this mountain of like stuff, everybody's coming at you and they're like, we need this and that and this and that. You like have to take it down and like, just be like, okay, now I've got this giant project, like list out, like what are the steps? What are the things that I have to tackle? And you just one step at a time. And it was one of the pieces that my manager, I would quote Finding Nemo all the time. I would quote Dory. And I gave her this desktop background that would just said, just keep swimming. And that was our mantra through the entire thing. Like, just keep swimming, just keep going. Don't like worry, like don't look back, don't look down, just keep going and like keep your head above water. And that like funny little stuff like that kind of helps. And, when you've got a really good support system like that.
Yeah, that's totally true. And what we see with enablement is that you get everything in the kitchen sink thrown at you. So it's really good to just put one foot in front of the other and tackle it kind of piece by piece. So I love that philosophy.
Yeah.
So if we fast forward from DataStax and you get to Divvy, one of the hottest startups in Utah, if not the entire country right now, raised a huge round, 200 million, growing like gangbusters, getting breaking ground on new offices. Walk us through what have you learned, and what's that playbook that you're looking at implementing at Divvy? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. I went from, so Sage was, when I joined, they were a perpetual model. So it was, you buy the software and you own it. Moved to Alteryx and DataStax, who were both SaaS sales models. Then I moved to Divvy, and Divvy is a completely free product. Like, we don't charge our customers anything to use it. And that's a very different like space. That's a different sale. That's a different mentality. It's a different strategy. So the playbooks that I was used to at my last companies, like, I could take bits and pieces of them, but I couldn't, implement the entire thing. Our sales cycles are shorter. Our reps don't have a lower barrier to entry. So there's all these things that you kind of have to like refine and tweak. And one of the things when I first started was to just figure out like, okay, where are we at? Like, let's just level set on like, where are the reps at? Where are the difficulties, like what some of the frustrations they're running into, and then level up, like, what are the managers seeing? What frustrations are they having? What are some of the things that they're noticing the reps are maybe, challenged with, or what aren't they seeing kind of on like a day-to-day basis? And it's one of those things where when you take a step back and like before you come in and like change anything, I think it's imperative that you get a good landscape of like, what is the business? And then you can start seeing like, okay, where's the low hanging fruit? Where can you come in and have some like quick wins with big impacts? And now that I've kind of like, I was able to identify those and kind of get those projects if not like completed, then at least started and through the kind of the wheelhouse of working it. Now I can focus on, building for the rapid growth that we're expecting over the next couple of years, and making sure that we've got a really solid framework and foundation that we can like build everything on, that isn't going to, once we hit like 500 employees, 1,000 employees, like all of a sudden the structure kind of like crumbles because they didn't plan appropriately there. So like all of those different pieces are really exciting and a lot of fun, but no less stressful.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. And I'm actually kind of curious, when you came in and looked for that low-hanging fruit, what was that? Very typical low-hanging fruit? Was it skills? Was it product knowledge? I'm actually curious what you found, and if you think it's a common pattern that other people may see in the enablement world.
Yeah. So I've actually seen it in the past, like throughout my career, the like content that sales reps need access to is all over the place. It is literally, it's in Slack, it's in email, it's on your desk as like a piece of paper. It's something that your manager told you in a one-on-one. It's in a PowerPoint slide deck. It's, up on a poster on a wall. It's literally living in every single different place, just kind of like all over. And reps, when they need it, they spend a lot of time just like asking people or going and trying and finding it and searching for it, like here, there, and everywhere. So that was one of the things that I like was my big initiative when I first started, was like, how do I find all of this data and all of this like collateral and assets and like information and like collapse it into one space? And in the startup world, it's, you don't have a lot of budget. And with the budget that you do have, you have to be very selective with what you do. So I actually reached out to a couple of like fellow enablement practitioners and like was asking them, I was like, I've got this problem. What did you do? Like, how did you fix it? And one of the gals I was speaking to, she actually uses, they use Google Sites. Just, it's a simple Google site that they like whipped up internally. Hers looks much fancier than mine does because she's got HTML and like the fancy stuff. So I just whipped together a Google site. I call it Divvy Central, and it's internal like access for just, it's the one-stop shop like hub for like everybody to collect. I've got like stuff from marketing, like what are the field events that are coming up? Here's the latest shareable content from like our brand department. Here's the new sales deck. Here's the new case study. Like all of that stuff that was at our company was mostly living in Slack. Like I just like one spot and everybody can kind of go to it for the latest and greatest information. So that was the like big project that I had that actually is proven to be really valuable, which I'm really thankful for.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear, and I think we see that trend often in the whole industry, where it is almost impossible to find these materials. It's usually a first order problem. So I'm glad you could solve that with Google Sites, and we see that a lot as well. So congrats on getting that solved right away. So Well, that's awesome. And it's been awesome kind of walking through your career journey. At this point in the conversation, I love to go into to rapid fire questions. So I have 4 questions for you.
Okay.
Each of these just a minute or 2 each. They're really fun to go through that I love to kind of walk through. So first one, what is the most creative or fun enablement activity you've run?
Yeah, so it's actually a really recent one. We implemented a new LMS, we implemented WorkRamp, and one of the biggest things that you have to kind of deal with is change management and getting people into a system and actually using it. So I came up with this idea to run an air guitar lip sync contest with our sales reps. So that was their introduction into the platform, was basically record yourself doing this. And the thought process behind it was they are introduced to the platform in a non-threatening, easy, kind of fun way. And we got some pretty amazing submissions. We got like a scene by scene Stranger Things season 3, like lip sync. It was amazing. So we've got some talented people at Divvy, I will say.
That's awesome. I wish I could see some of those videos. That sounds awesome. A great way to launch a software like ours. So really cool. We'll have to share that as a best practice moving forward. Okay, how about the most memorable win? This doesn't have to be at Divvy. It could be anywhere, or sales rep anecdote you've heard as a result of something you've done.
Yeah. So actually one of my like most rewarding things that I've seen throughout like a couple different companies now is when you run an onboarding group, those people tend to like really kind of like make a bond together, because like this is my new hire group, and like they just love it. And one of the things that's actually been like a lot of fun for me to see over like my career and like years and stuff is you go to like a QBR or a sales kickoff or something, I see these pockets of like new hire groups, just like they run up to I'm not exaggerating, they will run up to each other and they'll like give each other hugs, and there's like screaming and just like, oh my gosh, how are you? It's so exciting. And like I remember it was my one of the last kickoffs I was at with my previous company. I would see like I could identify the month groups. I was like, oh, that's December, and that's January, and that's March, and like it's really rewarding to see that like I can help facilitate that kind of relationship. And it's not just for like salespeople, it's marketing and pre-sales and brand and it's like literally everybody from across the business. I like having like that, like that's really gives me like the warm fuzzies when I see people being able to connect with others across the business. I really like it.
That's awesome to hear, especially how you forged so many early relationships. I'm sure it's paid wonders to the business as well. So killing 2 birds with 1 stone. So that's awesome. Okay, so here's the anti-question. So for more for people to learn from, what is one thing that you've done in the enablement world that you would not do again, or that failed miserably?
That's a tough question. I think one thing that, it not just enablement, but just in general, but I think especially with like some enablement folks is a lot of times analysis paralysis can kind of like capture you as a victim. And so one of the things that like I've caught myself doing it of like overthinking a training or a program or an initiative or something, and I drill so deep into it and I spend so much time on it, like thinking through every possible outcome and scenario and like way to present it, that like all of a sudden like months have gone by and I like my manager will be like, I thought you were working on this. So that's one of the things that I would say, like, it's easy to do, but like, don't get caught up in your head. Like, don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait for the perfect program or the perfect training or the perfect quarter or like anything. Just like think something through to the best of your ability and then roll it out. Like if it fails or if it flops, like that's feedback. Like don't take it as a negative, take it as like a positive. Like that doesn't work. That's fantastic. Let me gather some feedback from the people that I talk to and then like pivot and run fast in another direction. Like fail fast and fail forward. Like just keep going, but don't get caught up in trying to overanalyze or trying to overprescribe something, because then you just won't do anything.
That's great advice, and definitely I've seen that happen in the past, but that's really great advice for the audience. So we'll close on this last question. You seem to have such a passion for sales enablement. I loved your LinkedIn blog posts. You're really active in the community, but I'm kind of curious, like what drives you? What's your favorite part of enablement for you?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, because I have like, I'm a teacher at heart. So like teaching and training is really like what drives me. So being able to present content and information in different ways and thinking through like some people are visual learners. Some people will learn best off of like a chat discussion like this. Some people will learn off of like a one-on-one mentor. So like creating a training program that encompasses as many different learning styles as possible while putting a sales lens on it, like that is really just like what makes me really excited. But like in addition to that, I mean it's everything. It's the strategy and the planning and the working with other departments and being able to support the sales org, who are often some of the most fun people in an organization from my experience. That's really rewarding. That's what I just really love that's what takes me into the office like every single day with a smile on my face.
Well, that's awesome. I'm sure Divvy loves having you at the company, helping them enable this next phase of growth. And hopefully the audience can pick up a few tidbits from these great learnings you've had in your career. So Stephanie, I want to say thanks so much for joining us on this video chat. And thanks so much for participating.
Yeah, thanks for having me.